I died carrying his dry cleaning. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't noble. It was raining, I was in heels, and the suit I held in one hand cost more than my rent. The other hand gripped a phone vibrating with his name. Leah, where the hell are you? I didn't even get to open the message. The truck came out of nowhere, horn blaring, brakes screaming against the wet asphalt. And all I could think, in that flash of metal and fear, was, he's going to be mad the suit got wet. That was me. 5 years as Ethan Rhys's personal assistant, and my dying thought was about his dry cleaning. Not my family. Not my life. Not even regret. Just panic over being late. Then, nothing. No pearly gates. No tunnel of light. Just silence. A white ceiling. Blinding fluorescent bulbs. The sterile scent of bleach and something sweeter, like soap. Hospital? But no. This wasn't a hospital. The air wasn't sterile anymore. It smelled like lavender laundry detergent and cheap shampoo. Something warm brushed my cheek. Sheets. Sheets? I bolted upright. I was in my old apartment. My old apartment. My heart kicked hard against my ribs as I scanned the room. That scratch on the dresser, I hadn't made that in years. The ugly green curtains from IKEA I swore I'd replace. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. 2019. What? My hand trembled as I picked it up. Same old phone. Same old crack across the top right corner. And a calendar reminder blinking on the screen. Interview. Rhys Corp. 9:30 mm. No way. I rushed to the mirror, nearly tripping over my own feet. The woman staring back was me, but younger. Fresher. Fewer lines under the eyes. No shadow of burnout. I was 27 again, and late. No. I spun, grabbing clothes, panic hot and wild in my throat. I had no idea what was happening. But I remembered this day. Too well. The day I interviewed for Rhys Corp. The day I met him. The day it all started. This can't be real. This has to be a coma. A delusion. I'm probably brain dead in a hospital bed somewhere. But the tightness in my chest, the sweat on my neck, the prickle of memory, all of it screamed, this is real. Somehow, you're back. Back to the moment before I handed my life over on a silver platter. Before I said yes to every late night, every insult, every soul-sapping task. Before I fell in love with the man who saw me as furniture until the day I died in the rain with his damn Armani suit on my arm. I stared at myself in the mirror again. Not today. Not this time. I wasn't going to fall in love with him. I wasn't going to become the yes girl again. I wasn't going to lose myself, piece by polite piece. This time, I wouldn't be his doormat. And if fate was giving me one more shot at rewriting the ending, I was going to walk into that interview like I owned the place. Rhys Corp looked exactly how I remembered it. Sleek, glassy, expensive. The kind of place that smelled like polished steel and ambition. I walked into the lobby with my head held high, heels clicking against the marble like I belonged there. Because this time, I did. The receptionist offered a rehearsed smile and pointed me toward the elevators. HR is on 22. Good luck. I didn't need luck. I needed control. In the mirrored elevator, I checked myself one last time. Simple navy dress. Clean lines. Hair in a sharp twist. No makeup besides a touch of mascara. I wasn't here to impress. I was here to win, without playing nice. The doors slid open, revealing the same waiting area I'd sat in 4 years ago. Beige chairs, bland art, overwatered plant in the corner. Deja vu with a side of revenge. Leah Grace. A crisp voice called my name. I turned to find Maya, the HR director. She looked the same, tailored blazer, hair like polished wood, calm eyes that missed nothing. She offered a handshake and a neutral smile. I'm Maya. Come in. Her office was minimalist, immaculate. The kind of room where people confessed things they didn't mean to say. I took the seat across from her, crossed my legs, and waited. So, she began, glancing at her notes. "You're applying for the executive assistant position to Mr. Rhys." "I am," I replied, although the term assistant might be a bit reductive. Her brows lifted slightly. "How so?" "I'd rather think of myself as a strategic partner with an excellent memory and no fear of confrontation." She let out a small laugh. "Interesting. Most candidates usually tell me how well they take direction." "I do," I said, smiling. "But only when the direction makes sense." She studied me. "Why Rhys Corp?" I tilted my head, letting the silence stretch just enough. "Because I like chaos, and I'm very good at navigating it." Another pause. Then the door opened, and he walked in. Ethan Rhys, 34. Already a business legend. Tall, lean, sharp as winter glass. Same tailored charcoal suit. Same unreadable eyes. In my old life, this was the moment my breath caught in my throat. This time I didn't blink. "Sorry to interrupt," he said, not sounding sorry at all. "Maya, do you have a minute?" Then he saw me. Just for a beat. Just enough for his eyes to flicker. Recognition? No. Curiosity. I stood, slowly, and extended a hand. "Leah Grace." He took it. Firm grip, cool skin. His gaze narrowed. "Have we met?" "Not yet," I said lightly. "Though I've seen your face." He raised an eyebrow. I smiled, sharp but polite. "You look taller on the Forbes list." Maya choked on a sound that might have been a laugh. Ethan didn't, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "I like people who challenge me," he said evenly. "That doesn't mean I trust them." I met his gaze without flinching. "Good. I don't trust easily either." Maya cleared her throat. "Mr. Rhys, we're in the middle of..." "Right," he said, stepping back. But his eyes lingered. I sat again once the door closed. Maya looked at me over steepled fingers. "Well," she said, "that was memorable." I shrugged, crossing my legs again. "So am I." She smiled, just barely. "We'll be in touch." As I walked out of Rhys Corp that day, I felt it in my bones. This time, I hadn't come to serve. I'd come to choose. And step 1 was complete. The first rule of being an executive assistant at Rhys Corp? Don't expect respect. Not right away. Especially not when you're new, female, and 20-something. The moment I walked into the open office space on my first day, I saw the glances. The smug smiles. The silent bets. How long before she's running for triple-shot macchiatos and dry cleaning? Spoiler, never again. "Hey," a junior analyst said, popping his head over the divider. "Think you could grab me a latte if you're heading to the kitchen?" I didn't even slow my typing. "Sure. And while I'm at it, should I pick up your laundry too?" He blinked. "Just kidding." I wasn't. Whispers followed me all morning. Some confused, some amused. But I wasn't rude. I was efficient. And I didn't smile, unless I meant it. The office kitchen was a glass and steel corner space with overpriced teas and cold brew taps. A place where gossip brewed faster than the coffee. That's where I met Daniel. He was leaning against the counter in a lavender button-down and perfectly tailored pants, stirring oat milk into his espresso with the flair of a cabaret magician. Our eyes met. "You must be the new sacrificial lamb," he said, voice silk and steel. "Executive assistant, right?" "Apparently," I said, reaching for a mug. "But I bite." He smiled like I'd passed a test. "Good." The last one cried on day 2. "Did she bring coffee?" "Twice a day." With a smile, I poured my own. "Tragic." He leaned closer, voice dropping. "I like you already. You look like someone who doesn't give a damn." I tilted my head. "That obvious?" He grinned. "Daniel Design. Resident troublemaker. Leah. Admin. Recovering doormat." We clinked mugs. Alliance formed. The day passed in emails, scheduling chaos, and strategy documents. I didn't offer to stay late. I didn't offer to help with menial tasks. And by 6:02 I was shutting down my screen when my desk phone rang. Leah. Ethan's voice crackled through. Could you come to my office? Here we go. I walked in to find him at his desk, jacket off, sleeves rolled, typing furiously. He didn't look up. I need someone to stay and help prep for the Berlin call in the morning. The notes are, I'll send them to you by 9 a.m., I said, calm and polite. From home. That made him look up. His eyes narrowed, not angry, just surprised. Excuse me? I met his gaze without blinking. My contract doesn't mention overtime without prior approval. He leaned back slowly, fingers steepled. You always this efficient with boundaries? I try to be, I said. It keeps things clean. A pause. Then, to my absolute shock, he nodded. Fair enough. No threats, no guilt. Just that unreadable stare. I turned to leave. Leah? I glanced over my shoulder. He studied me like a riddle he couldn't quite solve. You've done this before? I smiled faintly. Feels like it. Back at my desk, Daniel passed with a dramatic stage whisper. You survived? Barely. He handed me a sticky note with a doodle of a trophy. For not being a pushover, I pinned it to my monitor. For the first time in 5 years, or 4, depending how you counted, I left the office with my spine straight and my soul intact. No coffee runs, no late-night favors, no more kisses for scraps of approval. This time, I walked out on my own terms. The office after 9 p.m. was a different animal. Quiet, cold, and too reflective. Like it had secrets. Like it remembered things even if the people inside tried to forget. My phone buzzed just as I was packing up. Ethan Rhys, Conf Room 17B. 10 minutes. No greeting, no context. Classic. Most assistants would have rushed. I didn't. I took my time. When I walked into conference room 17B, he was already there, sleeves rolled up again, tie loosened just enough to make it dangerous. He stood by the window, skyline glittering behind him like it bowed to him. Leah, he said without turning. Sit. I didn't move. Is this a meeting or a test? That got a glance. He gestured to the seat across from him. Depends on your answers. I sat, slowly. I didn't realize we were skipping HR protocol. He smirked. You've been here, what, 4 days? And already people are quoting you, good or bad. Both. That's why you're here. I folded my hands. Then ask what you really want to ask. He walked toward me, calm, calculating. You remind me of someone I used to know. He said finally. She looked at me like you do. Cold and curious. My throat tightened, but I didn't let it show. That was me. Before you broke me. She sounds smart, I said, steady. She was, he replied. Until she wasn't. I leaned back, tilting my head. And what happened to her? She tried to please everyone, and in the end, no one remembered her name. Ouch, but I didn't flinch. Maybe she didn't care about being remembered. Maybe she just wanted peace. He narrowed his eyes. Do you? Not peace, I said. Purpose. Silence stretched between us, thick and electric. The kind of silence that usually came before mistakes. Or confessions. Or both. Ethan broke it. You don't want to be here forever. It wasn't a question. No, I said. Do you? He didn't answer. I stood. Thanks for the chat. But if you called me in here to rattle me, try harder. He didn't stop me. Didn't argue. Just watched as I crossed the room. At the door, I paused. Half curiosity, half instinct. He was still staring. Not at my legs. Not at my walk. At me. As if he knew something didn't add up, but couldn't name what. You're different, he said softly. I glanced back, lips lifting just enough to be seen but not understood. So are you. Just not enough. I left the room first. I took the elevator alone. He didn't follow, but I knew deep down, he was still standing in that room, trying to figure out what had just walked away. And for the first time in 2 lives, I wanted him to wonder. My apartment was too quiet that night. The kind of silence that crept under doors and curled around your ankles like fog. I sat on the edge of my bed, fingers tracing the rim of a cold tea mug, staring at the wall as if it would blink back. But all I saw was him, not the Ethan from this week. The one from before, the one who smiled only when it benefited him. The one who praised me in meetings and forgot my name at parties. The one who sent me flowers after berating me in front of the board. And the one I thought I loved. How pathetic. Back then, I told myself it wasn't real love. It was admiration, respect, hope. But it wasn't. It was hunger. A need to matter to someone who didn't see me at all. And yet, I still remembered the way he looked at me that one night after I'd saved a deal he nearly ruined. "Good job, Grace," he'd said. My heart had practically leapt from my chest. One crumb. That was all it took. I slammed the mug down and stood, needing air, distance. Daniel texted me before I could ask. D. Felt like you needed sarcasm and caffeine. Meet me at the corner cafe? Me, make it double sarcasm. And no pity. D. Pity is so last season. The cafe was mostly empty. Just a barista wearing earbuds and 2 students arguing over a spreadsheet. I slid into the booth across from Daniel, who already had a latte waiting for me. He pushed it over. "You look like someone who's seen a ghost." "Not a ghost," I said. "Just an echo." He tilted his head, watching me. I took a sip. Let it burn a little. Then I told him the truth. I was in love with a version of him that didn't exist. Daniel didn't flinch, didn't joke, just nodded slowly. He was sharp, magnetic. He made me feel chosen, I continued. And then one day, I realized I'd built him out of fragments, polished all his worst pieces just to make them bearable. "You made him beautiful so he couldn't break you," Daniel said quietly. "Exactly." And he still did. We sat in silence for a beat. Then he leaned forward, hands wrapped around his cup like a prayer. "If he hurts you again," he said, eyes gleaming, "I'll redesign his face." I laughed, a surprised, grateful sound that cracked through the heaviness. "Will you use bold lines and brutal symmetry?" I asked. "Darling, I'll make Picasso look subtle." I reached out, touched his hand. "Thank you." He smiled. "You don't need saving, Leah. You just need to remember, he's not a mystery, he's a habit." That stuck with me. Later, walking home under a haze of city lights and misty rain, I repeated it to myself like a mantra. He's not a mystery. He's a habit. And I've broken worse. This time, I wouldn't chase his approval. I wouldn't measure my worth by his moods. I wouldn't drown in a version of him I'd invented just to survive. If he wanted to know me now, this me, he'd have to start from scratch. Because I wasn't in love anymore. Not with him, not with his ghost. Just with the chance to be free. The conference room buzzed with tension. 3 investors. 2 partners. 1 rapidly unraveling deal. I stood at the far end of the table, officially there just to take notes. But as I watched the conversation spiral toward disaster, my fingers stayed frozen over the keyboard. I'd seen this meeting before. Not in a dream. In a memory. Last time, Ethan refused to budge on valuation. The investors pulled out. The board panicked. 2 departments were cut. And I stayed late printing severance packets. Not this time. One of the investors, Harper, sharp-suited and impatient, was already checking his watch. "This isn't a passion project for us," he said. "It's an investment. And the numbers don't reflect the risk." Ethan leaned forward, voice clipped. "The numbers reflect potential, not risk." Oh no. Harper started gathering his things. "Then maybe we're not the right fit." I moved before I could talk myself out of it. "I think the risk model needs reframing," I said, calm and clear. Silence. Every head turned, including Ethan's. I stepped forward. If you compare this campaign to similar market entries from 2020, I caught myself corrected, from previous cycles, you'll see that early-stage growth looks volatile until engagement stabilizes in quarter 2. It's pattern-based, not failure-based. Harper frowned. You ran those comparisons? Yes, I lied smoothly. And I took the liberty of preparing a trend breakdown by segment. I pulled a printed chart from my folder and placed it in front of him. I remembered it from last time. I'd built it, but it had never been used. This time, I came prepared. The room went quiet as Harper scanned the data. Then he looked up, expression shifting. This is exactly what I needed. I nodded. If we're measuring risk, let's at least use the right yardstick. He looked at Ethan. You've got a good team. Ethan didn't respond right away, just stared at me like I'd grown a second head. The deal closed 15 minutes later. I stayed behind to pack up the room. Ethan waited by the door, arms crossed. When we were alone, he said, "How did you know what they'd say?" I met his gaze evenly. Call it intuition. He raised an eyebrow. Or experience. Another pause. Then, you've been in rooms like this before? I shrugged. I learn fast. His stare didn't waver. You went off script. You took a risk. Worked out, didn't it? A muscle ticked in his jaw. Next time, clear it with me first. I tilted my head. Next time, don't almost lose the deal. His lips twitched. Not quite a smile, but close. I stepped into the hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly overhead. Around me, the open space hummed with post-meeting chatter. Someone murmured, "Was that her idea?" Another whispered, "She saved it." I stepped into the elevator and hit the button for the lobby. The doors began to close. Then a hand shot between them. Ethan. He stepped in. Stood beside me in silence as the car descended. "You know," he said finally. Voice lower. "You don't act like an assistant." "Then maybe you hired the wrong person," I replied. Another beat. "No," he said quietly. "I think I hired the right one. I just don't know what you really are yet." I didn't respond. Let him wonder, because today I wasn't the girl typing silently in the corner. I was the one who turned the whole table around. The restaurant was too quiet for a business dinner. No background music, just the clink of glasses and the soft murmur of wealthy people pretending they weren't eavesdropping. The kind of place where the waiters never interrupted and the chairs were always leather. I sat across from Ethan, unsure if this was a reward, a trap, or both. He ordered a bottle of wine without asking. I didn't correct him. Not tonight. "You've been here before?" I asked, mostly to fill the silence. He glanced around. "My mother used to bring me here." That surprised me. Ethan Rhys rarely mentioned his family. In my old life, I'd worked for him 5 years, and still didn't know if his parents were alive. She liked quiet places. Controlled spaces. She sounds intense. He gave a soft laugh, one that didn't quite reach his eyes. Elaine Rhys doesn't believe in soft things. She built her first company while raising a 5-year-old and managing 3 lawsuits. Intensity was a feature, not a flaw. I sipped my wine. That explains some things. He smiled. But it wasn't the cold, self-satisfied curve I remembered. It was smaller, less practiced. "You know," he said, "you're not what I expected." I tilted my head. "Because I say no? Because I don't fetch coffee?" "Because you look me in the eye," he said. "Even when you're furious." I didn't deny it. After the main course we moved to the terrace. Dim lighting, soft breeze, and a skyline so sharp it felt unreal. He leaned on the railing, sleeves rolled, staring out into the dark like it held answers. "People always think I like being in charge," he said quietly. "Don't you? I like building things. I like fixing messes. I like control. But it gets lonely." That I didn't expect. He didn't look at me as he spoke, just kept watching the city. My mother taught me to lead, but she also taught me not to need anyone. And it worked. Too well, maybe. The silence between us grew heavier, but not uncomfortable. Waited. Real. Then he turned, finally meeting my eyes. You make me feel like I'm someone worth arguing with. That stopped me cold. Because beneath the smooth surface, behind the power plays and sharp lines, I saw him. Not the man who used to take me for granted, not the boss who barked orders and expected obedience. I saw a boy raised by a legend, trying not to drown in her shadow. I saw someone who never learned softness, only strategy. And for the first time, I didn't feel hatred or bitterness. Just clarity. He wasn't a monster. Not always. Not completely. But that didn't mean I would fall again. I didn't speak. I just smiled. Small, quiet, and utterly unshaken. Not flirty. Not inviting. Just mine. His brow furrowed slightly, like he wasn't sure whether he'd won or lost something. Maybe neither. Maybe both. We stayed like that for a long moment. Two people with too much history and none of it spoken aloud. Then I stepped away from the railing. I should go, I said softly. He didn't stop me. This time, he let me leave first, and I let him watch me go. Maya's office always smelled like eucalyptus and sharp insight. She didn't call me in often. So when the calendar pinged with a last-minute meeting request titled Chat, Mr., I knew it wasn't about payroll. I stepped in. She gestured toward the chair across from her, where sunlight cut clean lines across the hardwood floor. No small talk. No smile. Just the question. Do you want his heart, his position, or both? I blinked. She wasn't being coy. Her tone was flat, but not cruel, like a surgeon asking where to cut. I paused, then met her gaze. Is that a serious question? It's the only one worth asking, she said. Because whatever it is you're doing, it's working. He listens to you. He doesn't listen to anyone. I folded my hands in my lap. I'm not trying to take his place. No, Maya said, but you're standing in a space that makes people nervous. I took a breath. I don't want his heart, I said. I don't want to beat him. The words surprised me as they came out. I want to walk beside him. Not behind, not below. Maya studied me for a long moment, fingers steepled under her chin. Good, she said finally. Then stop running from yourself. I frowned. What do you mean? She leaned back in her chair. You act like you're trying to not care, like you're here by accident, like all your brilliance is some byproduct of circumstance. But you're not lucky, Leah. You're intentional. Every move, every answer. You didn't stumble into this. You came back for it. The words hit harder than I expected. She didn't know. She couldn't know. But somehow, she saw straight through me anyway. We met later in the corner cafe across from the building, off the record, off the clock. I ordered tea. She stuck with black coffee. I was like you once, she said, stirring it slowly, afraid that if I took up too much space, I'd lose people. But shrinking never saved anyone. I stared out the window. How did you stop? I didn't, Maya said. I outgrew the fear. You will too. But you have to choose what you want, clearly, out loud. Otherwise, someone else will choose for you. I nodded. More to myself than to her. There was a version of me, quiet, sweet, agreeable, that might have answered Ethan's late-night messages and smiled through the burn. That version was gone, buried under the one sitting here now. Sharp, steady, ready? The first thing I noticed about Elaine Rhys was the silence that followed her. She didn't speak when she entered Ethan's office. She didn't smile. She simply moved through space like someone who had owned it long before the blueprints were drawn. Dark gray suit, minimal jewelry, sharp eyes. The kind of woman who didn't ask for permission. She was permission. This is Leah Grace, Ethan said, gesturing toward me. She didn't offer a hand. Just a once-over, like I was a pair of shoes she might return. Executive assistant? She asked, gaze cutting. Strategic advisor, I replied without blinking. Her lips twitched. Is that what we're calling ambition now? I find ambition tends to speak for itself. Elaine's brow lifted just slightly. Careful. That tone sounds like challenge. I smiled. Only if you feel threatened. The room froze. And then, she laughed, low and unexpected. A sound like gravel and firelight. Finally, she said, "Someone with teeth." Ethan exhaled behind her, like he wasn't sure if I'd just been hired or disowned. Elaine walked to the window, eyes on the skyline. "Tell me, Leah, what do you want from my son?" It wasn't a question. It was a trap, but I stepped into it anyway. "Nothing," I said. "And that's exactly why I'm still here." She turned slowly, eyes narrowing with interest. "I like her," she said to Ethan. "She doesn't flinch." "She rarely does," he murmured. Elaine looked at him. "You need that. Someone who'll tell you when you're full of it." "I get that often enough already." "Yes," she said, then glanced at me again. "But now you might actually listen." With that, she turned and exited, heels tapping a final sentence into the marble floor. Later, in the hallway outside the boardroom, I caught a fragment of their conversation. I wasn't eavesdropping, technically. The door was half open. My feet just paused. Elaine's voice, low and certain. "Don't lose her, Ethan." A pause. "You won't find another like her." I didn't wait to hear his response. I walked away, heart steady. Because if Elaine Rhys, the woman who built empires and raised a fortress of a son, had seen me, tested me, and approved, then I wasn't just surviving this place anymore. I was starting to own it. His office was dim when I walked in. Not dark, just quiet. One lamp on. Blinds half drawn, the kind of lighting that makes even power feel human. Ethan was standing by the window, jacket off, tie loosened, his phone face down on the desk. Like he'd made the deliberate choice to be unreachable. "I wasn't expecting you," he said, not turning around. "You asked for me," I replied, folding my arms. "I didn't mean tonight." I closed the door behind me. "Then say what you need to say." He finally faced me. His expression was unreadable, but not cold, just tired. And, beneath that, something more fragile than I was used to seeing in him. "I don't want to play chess with you anymore," he said quietly. I raised a brow. "You usually enjoy winning." "This isn't about winning," he said. "It's about not pretending." I stayed silent. He stepped closer. Not too close, just enough to shorten the room between us. "I don't know when it started," he continued. "Maybe the Berlin call. Maybe the first time you told me no. But you're not just a name in my schedule anymore, Leah." He hesitated. No big speech. No dramatic gesture. Just one sentence. "If you want me to walk away, say so. But I won't pretend anymore." It hit me harder than if he'd said, "I love you." Because this wasn't about love. Not yet. This was about honesty. And Ethan Rhys didn't do honesty unless it was calculated. This wasn't calculated. I could feel it in the air, raw, real, quietly devastating. I looked at him, into him, and I didn't know what to say. Not because I was confused, but because I finally understood what power felt like when it wasn't about control. When it was about choice. I stepped back. "I need time," I said softly. He nodded. "I'll wait." I didn't promise anything. Didn't explain. Just turned and walked to the door. In the elevator, alone, I stared at the closed doors as the numbers descended. My heart wasn't racing. My hands weren't shaking. There was no dizzy rush of longing. No collapse into fantasy. Just a calm, steady certainty in my chest. He'd spoken. Now it was my turn. But not tonight. Tonight, I needed space not to react, but to feel. Because this time, I wouldn't answer out of habit, or hope, or fear. This time, I'd answer like a woman who finally knew what she was worth, and knew she could choose to say yes, or no. Daniel's balcony was 4 floors above the kind of street that never really slept. Just hummed softer at night. Neon flickered from a bar across the avenue, casting violet light onto the railing. The city buzzed below us like a nervous heart. He handed me a glass of wine without a word. No questions, no pity. Just quiet presence, like only someone who knows can offer. I leaned against the metal rail, letting the night air press against my skin. He said he'd wait, I finally said. Daniel sat cross-legged on a beanbag, drink in hand, eyes steady on mine. And I don't know what to do with that. A pause. I mean, I do, but I don't trust what I want yet. He gave a soft hum. You trust yourself more than you used to. Sure, I said. But sometimes I wonder, am I just walking in circles around the same fire, hoping this time I won't get burned? Daniel took a sip, then said, You're not circling, you're studying the flames. I smiled faintly. You always do that. Do what? Make everything sound poetic. And a little painful. He shrugged. Gay wisdom. We come pre-installed with metaphors. We both laughed, and for a moment, the weight in my chest loosened. Then I said it, what I hadn't said out loud to anyone. I'm scared I'll become that girl again. The one who made herself smaller to fit inside his world. Daniel was quiet. The good kind of quiet. You won't, he said finally, because that girl didn't know she had another option. You do now, I nodded slowly, staring out at the glittering city. Then his voice, softer this time. You finally love yourself more than your idea of him. That's growth. My throat tightened. Because it was true. I had loved the idea of Ethan Rhys. The success. The control. The thrill of being seen by someone so untouchable. But it wasn't real. Not until now. Not until I became real to myself. I looked down at my wine. I think I'm ready. To what? To go back. Daniel raised his glass. On your terms? I clinked mine gently against his. Only way I do things now. We sat in silence a little longer, the city stretching out in front of us like a promise. And somewhere in that skyline, I imagined a version of myself I hadn't met yet, walking tall, choosing wisely, and never again asking for permission to take up space. The conference room on the 35th floor had the best view in the building. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed the skyline like art. The city stretched wide and brilliant below, as if waiting for permission to shift beneath our feet. I walked in just past 9 a.m. Ethan was already there, standing at the window in a suit so tailored it could have been carved. A folder sat on the table. One pen. No coffee. Good. Morning, I said, voice calm. He turned, studying me with something close to relief, and something else layered beneath. Not hope. Not triumph. Something like peace. I wasn't sure you'd come, he said. Neither was I. We sat across from each other, no desk between us now, just glass, paper, and potential. He pushed the folder toward me. A new venture, he said, separate from Rhys Corp. Digital innovation meets behavioral data. I want to build it with someone who sees what I don't. I flipped through the document. It was clean. Fair. Generous, even. SEO founder. Equal equity. Joint voting power. He wasn't offering a title. He was offering room. Still, I closed the folder and looked at him. No conditions? I asked. He shook his head. Only clarity. Then I want to add something. I slid a page across the table. My own clause. My terms. My timing. He read it. Smiled. Not surprised. Not offended. Almost proud. That's very you, he said. It's the only version I offer now. He signed first. Then I did. No handshake. Just two pens clicking shut. We stood. I stepped closer to the window, watching the morning haze rise off the buildings. My reflection hovered faintly in the glass, sharper than I remembered. Present. Ethan joined me, hands in his pockets. No regrets? He asked. I looked out over the city that once felt too big, too distant. Only that I waited so long to see myself clearly. He nodded. Then, try not to outrank me too soon. I turned to him, one brow arched. Why? Worried I will? He grinned, terrified. For a second, just a second, something softened between us. Something that didn't need words or promises, just space to breathe. And respect enough to let it. He opened the door for me as we stepped out into the corridor. But I walked through first, not as an assistant, not as a maybe. As a woman who died once, and came back to lead. The dry cleaner was still there. Same faded blue awning, same flickering neon sign, same little bell on the door that once jingled when I walked in, rain-soaked and late, clutching a $1,000 suit I didn't own. I paused on the sidewalk and looked through the window. There it was, a rack full of plastic-wrapped jackets and slacks, spinning slowly like time on a loop. That's where I died, not dramatically, not heroically, just small, carrying someone else's life while forgetting my own. Now, I carried a leather tote bag and a folder with our company name embossed in silver. My name was on the door, on the paperwork, on the future. No dry cleaning inside, just my voice, my decisions, my spine. You good? Ethan asked beside me. He stood a step back, as always now, never in front of me, never pulling me forward. Just there. I smiled. Yeah. Just ghost hunting. He looked toward the window, then back at me. You don't have to carry anything you don't want to. I know, I said. That's why I don't. We crossed the street. The new office wasn't far. Top floor, shared name on the wall, windows that overlooked the city instead of trapping it in. People greeted us as we stepped in, not as boss and assistant. As partners, Daniel was already in the break room, sipping espresso and smirking. You're late, he teased. Ethan raised a brow. We weren't. She wasn't, I said. Daniel grinned and gave me a wink. I set my bag down, rolled up my sleeves and opened my laptop. But this time, it wasn't a wait. It was mine. I glanced at Ethan across the desk. His tie was slightly crooked. His hair was falling just a little out of place. He caught me looking and smiled, quiet, warm, unguarded. And for the first time, I didn't wonder if this would break me. Because now, I knew. This time, love didn't cost me myself. That's why it stayed.